Mira Business FM. The sound of success.
It's the morning drive at Mira Business FM. On the website, mirabusiness.fm. You could be watching there or on YouTube or across social media. You can download the podcasts. Pretty much everything we do is podcast, video and audio. So join us. Let us know what you think. We always appreciate a thumbs up or a subscribe. And it would be good to hear from you. info@mira.fm is the email address to get in touch with us here. But also you can WhatsApp. And very simply, whatsapp.mira.fm should bring up the dialogue box. Now, next on the morning drive, we're going to head back into a topic that's shaping the future of, I think it's fair to say, every industry: artificial intelligence. And obviously the accompanying data. Now, from game-changing announcements in 2025 to what businesses might expect next year in 2026, we're unpacking the trends that are set to redefine growth, customer engagement, and innovation. And joining us to break it all down is AI and data expert Vasudha Khandeparkar, who has been at the forefront of building data teams and scaling AI capabilities across industries worldwide. Vasudha, it's good to be talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. It's good to have you with us. I thought we could start, if you don't mind, by kind of reflecting back on this year, key kind of AI and data milestones. Really difficult question to start, I'm afraid, but I guess we got to start somewhere. So what were the most, do you think, transformative AI announcements this year, and why do those announcements matter so much for business?
I think if I reflect back on the year, there would be the announcements, I can distill them down into a few of them that really sort of made a huge impact for me, particularly given the industry sectors that I look at, as well as, looking into the future. And I think one of them is definitely I think everybody is aware of, the hype around NVIDIA, what's going on with GPUs, what's going on with chips. So I think what's been really, really interesting to note and to see, not just in the UAE, but across the GCC as a whole, is that ability to get a hold of GPUs, get a hold of that compute power, if you call it that, where we're not just set for now, but we also can scale very easily as a region. I think that for me is paramount. I think number two, from a financial services perspective, was definitely the announcement of the Digital Dirham, where the impact, I think, can be felt very quickly and very far and wide across the UAE, because it's now we've got rails which allow us to, pay people, salary transfers, interactions with money become so much smoother, so much quicker. And I think that's very, very important. And I think as a parent, for me, bringing up kids here in the UAE, the third announcement has to be the inculcation of AI curriculum into schools, because we're not just building an infrastructure that is working for businesses, but if you think about it, we're also building a workforce that is ready to leverage these technologies, that is ready to use all of these to build the country in a much faster and a much better fashion in the future.
Which industries do you think, and I guess I'm talking about this year once again, but I guess this is also a slightly broader question as well. Which industries have seen the fastest adoption of AI, do you think, Vasudha? And what lessons can, other industries learn from that?
I think the two industries that kind of stand out are undoubtedly, sort of the regulated ones. So financial services and healthcare. And I think they have grown leaps and bounds. And I think the one thing that other industries can also pick up is, if you look at a regulated industry, the impact of getting it wrong is enormous, because one mistake can impact lives in ways that you haven't thought about yet. And that's the reason why the regulated healthcare is regulated, financial services is regulated. But the advantage that these industries have is that they've got data and they're using what they already have. They're using the knowledge that they already have and they're building on that. And they're making not sort of step change improvements, but they're making small improvements and they're building them up to show the scale of the impact. And I think that is important. You don't need to do a big bang with AI anymore. Pick one thing and do it well. Fix one problem, and the impact that it has is huge. And I think that is something that a lot of businesses can take with them, is you don't need to fix your entire customer journey in one go. You don't need to fix, say, fraud pipelines in one go. You can pick out one aspect of that pipeline, fix it, use AI to make it faster, make it smoother, and the impact is felt all through the chain. And I think that's what banking or financial services as a whole, and even healthcare as a whole, have done. They've not gone and said, hey, we're going to fix everything to do with this particular care pathway. We're going to say, look at radiology scans, and we're going to try and say predict how we can find breast cancer markers sooner. And that's great, because it's picked one very specific problem and solved for one very specific question. And that's had a huge impact. And that's the same thing that you can see in financial services, where if you look at fraud, they are picking up small transactions, they're picking up different transactional patterns, and they're just looking at the ways in which customers interact with money, and they're using that to make a decision in terms of whether that could be fraudulent or not. And that then has an impact across the pipeline, because while you can think about AI as having an impact in a game-changing way, which is what people understand today because of the LLMs that they interact with, like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. The one thing that tends to get forgotten is, how is it getting used? It's not getting used in a big bang way. It's getting used to make these small changes, which ultimately have a huge impact, whether it's on productivity, whether it's on efficiency, or whether it's on cost reduction. And ultimately, I think what's going to be important in the future is, once you've realized all those efficiencies, how do you start generating more revenue for the business in itself?
I think that's a really salient point you make there, because it's as though the last couple of years have been all about, our AI capabilities, and it's AI this and it's AI that. And I've felt a little bit a point where, if I never hear that phrase AI capability once again, it will be too soon, kind of thing. And I think it's almost as though we're past that. AI is embedded now. It would be odd if organizations, businesses, us as people, weren't embedding AI or using AI to our advantage. Let's look at implications for growth in business terms. How are organizations using and leveraging data so that they can really enhance customer experience and, following that, really drive business growth?
I think where businesses are using, it's not just the data that they have. I think what's important to understand is also the knowledge that the business has about its customers. And that's where you actually see the magic happen when it comes to AI. Because you not just have what someone's doing, but you also know why they've done it. And you can then turn around and go, hey, actually, I don't need to give this product or service to this customer. What they actually need is a slight variation of this. And then for me as a business, I can make a decision on whether, the economics of offering that product makes sense. So say in banking terms, if you're offering remittances to customers, you can offer different remittance rates, you can offer different, currency exchange rates. But ultimately, if you know that a customer is always only going to do it once a month, and there is a specific reason as to why they're doing it in terms of, say, paying bills in their home country, you can almost tell them that, as you've got a payment infrastructure here for your bills, I can offer that to you. It's understanding the customer, understanding their intent, which has become so much easier. And actually, that intent is not as easily visible in the data, but it is visible in the individuals who've been interacting with that data. So I think what's really, really important for the future is, while you've got that data, and you will always struggle with legacy systems, don't forget that you've also built up a data team or a set of individuals who know that data inside out. And I think in the quest for leveraging AI and making sure that AI brings efficiencies to data teams in particular, we often forget that there is so much knowledge residing in data teams that we sort of ignore them at scale sometimes.
Let's have a look ahead at 2026. So here comes the future question. Be ready. What trends in data and what trends in AI should businesses be preparing for over the next 12 months, or looking towards the next 12 months?
I think there'll definitely be, as I said, those micro elements. So where we are, and let's take LLMs to start with.
Mm.
Instead of building these large scale programs which look at data overall across the globe in some instances, as say a chat GPT would do, I think what businesses are going to do is they're going to build something that's a lot more private and a lot more tuned towards their own data and their own infrastructure. And that can be a lot more powerful because then you don't get aspects like hallucinations coming in, and you don't get your outputs being muddied by inputs from other sources which may not be as relevant to you. Then I think there is a lot of influx of things like AI co-pilots, which will come into the equation across sectors, across industries, and irrespective of which side of the fence you're on, whether you're the business or whether you're the customer interacting with that business. I think it will be hugely important to understand that it may not always be a human that you're interacting with at the other side of the fence, whether it is the recommendation of the product that's coming to you, or whether it's the agent who's speaking to you on chat when you're speaking to, say, your bank or another organization. What I think will also start impacting a lot of students, schools, universities, and it's happening already, is where say students are using a lot of AI to respond to a lot of their assignments. I think what we'll start finding is AI is becoming more central to some of the education that's being provided today, and teachers encouraging the incorporation of these tools into how students respond, how students learn the data, because it allows them to learn at their own pace and also understand in a way that traditional education might not be able to explain it to them in. And I think these are a few things to sort of keep in mind. And I think it's important because as you have new workforce coming in, a workforce that's hugely used to using tools, like say a GPT or a copilot to do their work, these are the individuals who are coming into the workforce. So how do you leverage their knowledge of the front end AI systems to improve workflows within your organization? And as a consumer, how do you then know how best to extract the value that you need from the business or the product that you're buying into?
How do you, I mean, this is kind of a side question really, but how do you moderate the use of AI when it comes to education? Because there are obviously the dangers there of AI doing a little bit more than, just becoming little bit more than just being a tool that we harness, in that, AI could effectively, in some cases, write that essay for you, solve that issue, that problem for you at school. How do you balance that equation?
I read something. I read an example of a teacher back in a school in the US, and that's actually something that I use with my kids. It resonated with me quite a lot. Obviously, I can write your essays for you. Obviously, it can give you solutions to the problems.
Mm.
But as somebody who consumes AI on a regular basis, and I'm sure this is true of everybody who's listening right now, you've noticed when it makes a mistake. You know when it's not quite right.
Mm.
So what I do with my kids is I say, it's fine. It's a free for all. You can use whatever you want to use. You can do whatever you want to do. You can solve the problem, however, but I want you to find one mistake. And I want you to go and prove to me why it's a mistake. And it could be something as simple as, ChatGPT telling them 1 plus 1 is 5, or it could be, an error that it's made in a historic fact, which has been debunked, but that source was, say, not available to the algorithm when it was being tuned. And what they've then sort of learned to realize is as the outputs are coming out, don't trust it 100%. Apply your own thinking. Why is something correct? Why is it saying this? And query it. Go dig, go find your own facts, go search and understand why it's saying something in the way that it's responding to you. And whether you're using it to say find code, or whether you're using it to find the answer to a complicated maths problem, or even write an essay for you, the answer is going to be a guide. you are still the one who's going to have to go and fact check it. You're still going to have to go and find out whether or not there is an error in what it's given you. And you have to do that for yourself. You have to ask those questions. You have to build that critical thinking ability. It's not going to be given to you. You have to know that there are errors, and those errors will be, can be found. And I show them these things where, I've done some research using an LLM, and I've said, okay, please give me the links to each of those sources. And more often than not, those links don't even exist. They're phantom links. The LLM is hallucinated. And I show them these things. I said, look, I know that these are typically where hallucinations happen, and this is how I tend to problem solve for them. And they then start using that and go, okay, fine, show me where this fact has been proven. And, if they can't find the link, then they know that it's an error, and then they go and find the answers themselves. And I think it's important to build that in as well, because let's all be honest, irrespective of whether you're a college student or somebody trying to draft a complicated email at work, you're definitely trying to go and use sort of Copilot or GPT or Gemini to do some of the heavy lifting for you. What's important is we don't lose our ability to think in the bargain.
This is the thing, isn't it? I guess if you use AI sensibly, you should be able to create whatever you're creating without AI. So it's finding that balance somewhere. At some point, I guess we're going to have the perfect formula for that. Fingers crossed, I hope, at least. Let me just ask you about any emerging technologies. Technology moves so fast, I can't keep up. I don't think many people can keep up. But any emerging technologies and tools that are set to perhaps redefine or refine even data-driven decision-making? Anything coming?
There's a lot that's happening in terms of tools, technologies that will come in. I think, like I mentioned earlier, the private sort of LLMs, AI tools that businesses are building in-house will be very important. And the reason it's important is because a lot of these algorithms rely on recall. And now, instead of recalling from global information, they're recalling from local information, which then becomes very important. And actually, you see iterations of these in the government bodies here in the UAE. So DLD, for example, has their own chatbots and their own knowledge management systems that sit on top of their policies. And where, if you ask their chatbot internally within the website, it actually pulls out that relevant policy and translates it for you in a manner where it is only relying on the policies within land departments. So I think these kinds of iterations, these micro implementations of AI will start becoming very important. And I think from a broader perspective, which impacts businesses irrespective of scale, will start becoming things like, autonomous analysis. And I think we're seeing small iterations of those already coming out, where businesses are not really building and scaling, say, AI teams or data teams. They're building blocks. It's almost like, think about it like a construction site. You don't sort of construct, 100-story building up front. They've got the foundations, they've got the data rails, and instead of sort of building an entire data team or AI team, they're building small foundational elements. They're using tools to give them the analysis of their customers, analysis of operational behavior through the tools, rather than doing it through a data team. And I think that's very important, because you can analyze data immediately. It becomes a lot more important. You can start triggering actions a lot quicker than a human can intervene as well. But what then becomes very important is that understanding of the data. And I think related to that is where you've got that agent human interaction, which will start becoming more important in 26 as we sort of go into it, cleaning the data, running some of the analysis, triggering any alerts. And I think that will also come to the forefront. And I think finally, in terms of banking, fintech, that still hasn't quite touched the scale that it can achieve, but we're moving at a very, very fast pace. So you've got a lot of sort of instantaneous settlements. You'll have programmable rails that will come up and become available for institutions here, and I think it'll almost set the benchmark for for sort of global payments and the way the payments ecosystem will need to work based on what's happening here in the UAE. And things like compliance checks, fraud checks, transparency, all starts becoming very, very quick and very, very easy. And I think for me, these would be sort of the 4 or 5 things that are all sort of intertwined, but really are exciting elements to look forward to next year.
Can we look very quickly at just specifically, leadership in business, and then some practical advice for businesses as well? How should business leaders structure their teams so that they can get, the maximum possible value from AI and data initiatives? And also, if I can kind of tack on to that, what skills are going to be most in demand next year for professionals in data and in AI?
I think the three sort of most common problems that you would see across any organization here in the region, particularly, is that you've got a legacy infrastructure. So you've got your data sat in systems which don't quite interact with the modern sort of AI-driven technology that is available, and businesses and leaders often want to use. So I think the key is understanding that infrastructure is going to be key, and the modernization of infrastructure is absolutely key in sort of building and deploying AI. There's no point in having a full-fledged AI team when they can't leverage or build any of those tools given the infrastructure that they have, which is then why data engineering and engineering teams become very, very important. And that's almost the foundational element that businesses leaders need to have to make sure that the infrastructure is usable. And it needs to be usable today because, as you pointed out earlier, it's changing so quickly that there's no point in building something that's perfect for the AI implementations that you need today. You need to think about how you would be using them, say, in 3, 5 years. Somebody who can build you the scaffolding very, very quickly that allows you to build the AI systems and then move on. That's the kind of data and engineering team that you need. Then you kind of move on to the teams that are actually building you those AI products, almost, if you will. So do you need analysts? Do you need data scientists? Do you need, AI engineers? And that then sort of starts becoming the next layer that you build on. So how are you actually driving value from data? The value from data doesn't only come from your AI teams, it comes across multiple teams. And again, that's where the test and learn mindset also comes in. Can your, analysts who are using machine learning algorithms, or people who are doing, sort of simple, this is the state of affairs with your customers today. What is the value that they're generating for you? And what is the value that the AI teams can bring into the equation? And I think underpinning all of this, Tim, I think, as you've also said, is this huge element of change. Everything is changing at such a fast pace. I go to sleep and then I wake up in the morning and there's something new that's been launched. Now, for me, I can kind of draw the parallels, but then as a business leader, what's important to understand is that same pace of change that's hitting you is also hitting your teams and your customers. How do you speak to them? And how do you scale in a way that takes your customers and your teams on that journey with you? I'm not saying that your entire team or all your customers will join you on that journey, but that change management and the change enablement is something that is key and often forgotten in a lot of organizations. So, how do I empower my teams to leverage AI? How do I empower my teams to build some of these, really game changing tools? At the same time, how do I also give them the space to sort of learn and be okay with the fact that things are changing and they're changing at this pace? I think those for me would be the three key things in terms of structuring teams as well as building strategy that work for the organization, leverage data, and sort of take customers on that journey with you. And I think what's key to understand is if you fall on any one of these aspects, the foundation, the product teams, or this change management, what lands up happening is you get stuck in this constant loop of pilots. I've built this really great product, but I'm not able to scale it. And if you really want to realize value from AI, you need to make sure that all of these three elements work well, and work well together.
getting the basics right. What about in terms of the skills, Vasudha, that you think are going to be most in demand for in 2026? I probably tacked two questions together there that didn't need to be tacked, but what do you think about skills?
I think from a skills perspective, it's individuals who can almost be those AI product owners. So people who can build you that entire product from pilot all the way to scale. So someone who can manage it. Think about it, if you're launching, say, a new perfume, you would have somebody who's managing the entire pipeline from choosing what it smells like to the packaging to the bottling to making sure it's manufactured. So you need that person who can look at it end to end and understand and make sure that they sort of problem solve as it goes as you're scaling your AI programs. You then, like I mentioned earlier as well, you need those foundational data engineering teams who can make sure that the infrastructure that you have and the data that is available within that infrastructure is consumable. So those are definitely two skills that become very, very important. I know that prompt engineering has been around for a long time and people want individuals who can write good prompts. And that I think will continue as we build different AI iterations. You will need different types of prompt engineering. And that will continue. What I also think is you will require a lot of sector expertise, whether it's financial services, whether it's healthcare, whether it's public services. You will need individuals who understand the industry, understand the complications in the industry that often get missed out in data. And I always say, I always give the example of, say you're trying to buy something or, you're booking a holiday, your child comes in at 11 p.m. because they've got a temperature. The first thing you do is not continue with your purchase. You put everything on the side, make sure that your child is okay, put them back to bed, sort them out, and you've probably sometimes even forgotten about what you were doing. And then you come back day later, you've got a discount code probably to complete that purchase, and that's what triggers you to make that purchase and complete it. Your child coming into the room and interrupting you is never going to get caught in the data pipeline. So it's people who understand the nuances. Why is it that people turn left instead of going straight at the lights? If you're looking at roads and transport, why is it that people still prefer to drive versus taking the metro? What is it that's not covered in the metro infrastructure? Why is it that people still prefer to send their remittances through one provider versus another provider? What is it that they're not getting in the services that you are providing? That sector expertise and the depth of understanding will start becoming very, very important. And all of these elements almost wrap up into just one key aspect: who can deliver the outcomes for you. It's no longer about pilots, because pilots exist across every organization and those have worked. It's now who can put a nice wrapper around these pilots, drive them, and achieve sort of key outcomes and value that organizations are really looking for from AI. Investments have been made. Now let's make sure that we get the value realization from it.
Couple of questions, maybe actually just one more question for you, and this is I'm just wondering if you can ruminate a little on this. But for what about those of us at work who are still wary of AI, the implications of AI, just the thought of this looming intelligence there? How can companies best encourage their employees to embrace artificial intelligence? Because I think there's still trepidation. You can feel it with people.
So for me, I think when a team member, say for example, comes with this, why the first question I ask them is, what is it that you're scared about?
Mm.
What is it that worries you about adopting this? And if I kind of think to the responses I get, there's obviously the job side of things. I mean, we work in data teams, we see how AI sort of changes the very nature of the work that you do. And I think it's important to understand why there is that trepidation. Is it going to become all consuming? Is it going to sort of lead you into the sci-fi movie territory? Is it the job, or is it something else? And it can range from I'm worried for my job, but if it is a tool, if it is a technology, if you're building a skill set that's going to be relevant for the future, or you're even a sector expert. You're, there is a place for you in this ecosystem, and there is a value that you bring to the table. And if it is, the whole sci-fi element, the human intervention in AI is still so important because, like I said, data is always only going to paint 80% of the picture, but that last mile 20% still requires human intervention, and that will always be important. The AI system only becomes better when it interacts with a human. So the more you embrace it, the more you interact with it, the more it becomes suitable for the purposes that you are building and you are developing. And I think that's important to understand. Why are you worried? What is it that's stopping you? And I've also had people who say, we come from a mindset where we've learned, and we need to be comfortable in terms of the technology that we're using, in terms of what we are, what we're bringing to, say, the workplace. We put ourselves out there as the experts, and if we are then relying on a technology, as we do with the college kids who use ChatGPT to write an essay, we often think of it as cheating. But that's not it. It's, I would say, think about it the other way. You've now got access to the best libraries in the world, giving you the best, the worst, the answers to experiments that have worked well, the answers to experiments that have failed. And you can use all of this knowledge to improve what you're doing. This is knowledge that you would never have at your fingertips before. So for me, it's always why. The first question is always why. Why are you worried about this? What is it that is stopping you from adopting this? And then speaking to that worry and understanding, how you sort of bring that to the table. And it's a good worry, because if you then say implement a chatbot for your customers, the chances are that customer also has the same worry. How can AI understand me better than a human can? Why should I rely on this AI implementation? So I think it's very important to acknowledge the fact that there is that trepidation, as you say, and bring it to the conversation as well. It is a very important part of the conversation, and we should definitely talk about it a lot more than probably we are talking about today, because that's some of the missing element in terms of why a lot of these AI programs are just not working.
It's been fascinating talking to you. It really has. AI and data in 2025 and what 2026 might hold in terms of AI and data. Vasudha Khandeparkar is an AI and data expert, over 15 years of international experience in various industries and functions. And I really appreciate you joining us this morning, Vasudha, on Mira Business FM.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Good to have you with us. This is Mira Business FM.